Hello, everybody. Chop-a-dong back at you with Box Checkers Week 1 NFL. Made easy. We're going to dive in. We're going to do receivers, tight ends, possibly defenses, and we're going to put a pretty little bow on this thing for Week 1 and ship it off into the sunset. If you look back, you can see the QBs. You can see the running backs. Hopefully, if you've watched those videos, liked and subscribed to the channel so that you get them all. Hint, hint, wink, wink. You also are picking up on the pattern of what we look for when it comes to trimming the player pool down to the better picks. Now, of course, you're going to miss some things. You're going to have to use some common sense. You're going to have to jump back in and say, James Robinson's way too cheap. Alvin Kamara may be on the road, so if I filter out by home teams only, I'm going to miss him. I'm going to need to go back and pick him up because he's a 5-box checker this week. Not a 6-box checker, but he's a 5-box checker. And at the home teams, we had some 4-box checkers. Well, 5 beats 4. Kamara is better than the 4-box checkers like an Aaron Jones. So we're going to have to go back and use some common sense and figure out if we've missed a couple players here or there. We're going to use our cheat sheets. We're going to use our domination station and things for all sorts of fun stuff leading up to Week 1. So stay with me, and let's kind of dive in and let's do those receivers in the NFL Research Station. First, let's call up ye old box checkers criteria. With wide receivers, we don't use home and favored anymore. For some reason, it matters for tight ends. It does not matter for wide receivers. Wide receivers, we want the extreme implied team totals of scoring. We want way low or way high. Way low, under 18 implied points. Why? Garbage time. El tiempo de garbage is what we're looking for, because those receivers scoop up massive points, especially in PPR leagues, when they have some 70-yard drive that the defense didn't give a crap about, and our guy scores the tutty. It can be a 15 to 16-point bonanza for our guy that makes value all on that last drive, and the quarterback only gets about half the points, if even. So what we want to find is we want to find those low-scoring guys that the offenses will be keying on in that tiempo de garbage, and we want the high-scoring bonanza shootout games too, because that's when the game goes 40-something to 40-something, the receivers were going bonkers, and those often hit value as well. We want 8+ targets. If you remember us talking about running backs, we want volume. We want touches. We want floor. We want some consistency. If you only get the ball, say you scored 2 touchdowns on 4 catches. Good job. Not sustainable. You're going to want volume. That's what evens out the volatility and the variance and produces a more consistent player. That's what we're looking for with box checkers, okay? Red zone targets we also need. We want to be targeted inside the red zone. If our guys only use between the 20s, Jarvis Landry, I'm looking at you. You're not really going to do much for me. You've got a very, very low ceiling. You may have a high floor, but you got a low ceiling. And we want players with both. We want a high floor player, but we want somebody with a ceiling too. And yeah, I know Jarvis Landry can score some touchdowns. But generally speaking, we're looking for the players that get targeted inside that red zone as well. Tight end goes back to home and favored, but uses the same criteria as the running backs, except for targets and obviously red zone work. We're wanting the over 24. We're wanting 8 targets, just like the running backs, where they want a lot of touches. We want a lot of targets down close to the goal line inside the 5. Of course, that's where tight ends are typically used anyway. And then defenses, we want the easy one is over 6-point favorite, under 18 points implied team total. And I'll show you how that works here in a sec. So let's remember those and let's dive in. When I go to the wide receivers tab, and of course, kick off that Thursday night game, because we don't need it, not for the main slate. We're first going to sort those players out in the Vegas by over 18 or under 18. So we go text or filters, whatever the word I'm looking for is, custom filter less than 18. Give it to me, baby. We'll see if we can find it this week. There are none. That's a good sign. We go back to that team total. And now we go greater than 27. Now we've got some players. So we don't really have anybody way, way, way low on the scoring yet. Believe me, this year it will happen. It's just not happening for week 1. But now we're looking at Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill, A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, all the names and the people that you've grown to love. on which teams. Here's a fun one. We'll sort this A to Z, go alphabetical order. Buffalo, KC, Tennessee. There's only 3 teams apparently that are over on this slate. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me because I thought we had more than that are over 27, not 24 points, 27 points. These are the teams that are. If we want to include teams that are over, and wide receivers hard to find really, really good box checkers. I will admit that. Let's go down to 26.5. See if we don't pick up some 27s. There's a couple 27s coming in there. Let's re-alphabetize these bad boys. We just picked up Green Bay. Buffalo, KC, Green Bay, Tennessee. These are our over 27-point teams. Scroll over here to the 2020 stats. We take the receptions per game. Actually, we want targets. It's okay to have targets here. And we want to put on a little bit of a filter. Actually, we could just sort Z to A. Probably, when you see something like this, get a little bit of above 0. Give me the custom filter. Greater than 0. And that's going to get rid of those blanks. Now, what I've seen is 10 targets per game for Diggs and Adams. High floor players. 9 for Tyreek Hill. High floor players. Tyreek Hill runs a lot of deeper routes. Still gets the ball thrown at him like crazy. These guys are all over 7, then it drops off into oblivion. We don't need to be targeting Byron Pringle for our cash games or any format other than maybe a game stack with Kansas City. What we're looking for is these guys right up here. So anything over about 7, actually is Cole Beasley, which is interesting enough, but let's run down Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill, A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, maybe Cole Beasley are the guys we're looking for primarily. That doesn't mean this is it. It doesn't mean this is the only receivers we use. This means these are the receivers we're most excited about. These are the receivers that we're probably looking to put in our lineups first. So when I scroll over here to the red zone work and I look inside the 10, inside the 20, I see a lot of targets among these guys. There's a reason for that. Devontae Adams inside the 5. More work than Aaron Jones probably. Tyreek Hill also inside the 5. Now that one, he throws a lot of deep routes, or he runs a lot of deep routes, but how many of you knew he was also used like a Travis Kelce inside the 5? That's a good number to have. It means he's not just dependent on the deep ball. He's also dependent on some short. He's got a floor. Believe it or not. Okay, so when it comes to wide receivers, those guys are checking off the boxes. It was really easy to find. It's these 5 or 6 guys. Does that mean that Marquez Callaway is not being used? No. You're going to want to use that guy. Again, common sense for obvious reasons. He's far too cheap. You might want to use, Calvin Ridley. He's a fine example. These are guys that he just may not be scoring over in the 27. He didn't cross the 27 threshold. He may be down in the 24, 25, 26 threshold, which is still fine. So let's just kind of keep it in perspective. We're looking for the very, very top. We're not looking on paper at the guys just underneath the top, but those guys are also in play, if that makes sense. Let's jump over to tight ends really quick. Let's kick this one off. And let's scroll over here to the targets. We need to get rid of, we need to get to the Vegas information. We need to get the favorites. That's an easy text filter there. Less than 0. Doesn't mean that underdogs are dead to us. It means that we prefer favorites. I think that's going to become a common misconception. So now I come down here and I can sort off those that are under. Or I should say over, greater than 24. Let's call it 23.5 so we get the 24s in there with it. And now we've got plenty of tight ends to choose from. We can scroll over here to targets per game and organize that Z to A. I guess we got to get rid of the zeros again. See, Kyle Pitts is going to disappear. You noticing this? He's got no workload. He's a rookie. So when I get rid of the zeros, we don't have any numbers on him anyway. Greater than 0. Goodbye, Kyle Pitts. Does that mean we're not going to use Kyle Pitts? No. Does it mean this system is flawed? Not really. It means that we have to use our own judgment as well. We have to know When you go around, this system is just picking historical creme de la creme. Okay, it's Travis Kelce, Kittle, maybe some Hurst, Everett, Jordan. Geez, those are some weird ones, huh? But when we're looking at the guys that are getting targeted, and Everett was targeted by the Rams last year, don't forget that. But look at even Robert Tonyan's not targeted a ton historically. Had 11 TDs. Maybe that's sustainable, maybe that's not. We're looking for these guys up in here, Kelce and Kittle. Everybody else on the slate, these might be your cash game. Now, you might use a Pitts. You might decide that you need a running back over a tight end. Obviously, running backs have higher floors than tight ends. So if you're going to cough up some salary somewhere and take a chance, you might as well take a chance on a position that's already rather volatile. Lock up the safety and the running back. Makes sense? But if you got the money, you got the expendable income, there you go. Those are your key tight ends. And you come down over here, and obviously you've got all your red zone work. Right? There you go. Simple. Easy peasy. When I come over to the defense numbers, again, I kick that number off. And what I'm going to look for in the defense is the big-time favorites. Give me those that are favored. I'll go A to Z here and bring the big negative numbers to the top here. Okay? And now what I need to know is the corresponding teams and where are we looking for under 18 points. Remember, we didn't see any for wide receivers, so we're not going to see any for the defenses either. But we see some close. We see the Detroit Lions are only, this is their number, right? This is a defense page. They are implied to score 18 points. That means that their opponent is probably in a pretty good position. They're 8-point underdogs. Who's their opponent? San Francisco. San Francisco is an 8-point favorite, right? And the Detroit Lions are only implied to score 18.5 points. That's a good defense. 8-point favorites, opponent implied to score under 20. Under 18 is preferable. Under 20 is okay. Under 22 is okay. So any of these guys down in this range, this red range, right, if they are 6-point underdogs or worse, so any of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, bottom 5 teams, their opponents, because we're looking at the actual team, the Jets, Cleveland, Pittsburgh. We're not playing those defenses. However, their opponents, Carolina, Kansas City, Buffalo, Rams, San Francisco. And that doesn't mention Denver going up against the Giants. But these are viable defenses. These are defenses that typically are going to hit value. They're greater than 6-point favorites, and their team, the team they're facing, these guys here, are under 20 implied team points outside of the Jets, outside of the Cleveland Browns. That's how we do it. That's very, very simple. And what we'll start doing as the season goes on is we'll start going through all of these positions in 15 minutes. Wham, quarterbacks, wham, running backs, wham, receiver, wham, tight end, wham, defenses. Bing, 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 bing. In, out, and done in 15 minutes worth of research. Give your Tuesday or your Wednesday back to you to start siphoning through other information, other data points yourself. But at least you'll have these guys written down on a list on the site. And you should realize that when these guys go lower owned, they're great tournament plays. Great tournament plays because they hit their number quite often. And when they're highly owned, they're great cash game plays, probably locks. Takes a little bit to get going early into a season, week 1, week 2, week 3. We need some data to materialize. We need some new teams to shift around. How are they going to use that player? We also need to see a little bit when it comes to some of the normalcy, some of the Vegas numbers, some of everything else come together. But once we start rolling into the season, first quartile of the season, this will be a pretty darn good system for cash games, for hybrids, for tournaments even, once we learn how to use it correctly. It's been working really, really well for about 5 years now for me in terms of ladder lineups. If you want to know what a ladder lineup is, I said I would include it in the last video. I'll try and include it in this one too in the description. And you'll be off and running. So if you're interested in more information like this and more interaction back and forth, more question, more Q&A, you need to come into dfsarmy.com, become a VIP, use the coupon code CHOP. In fact, use the coupon code KICKOFF. It's a 20% discount for probably about 5 to 7 days here. You want to get 20% instead of 10%, use coupon code KICKOFF and get in here right now. Start asking questions before week 1 starts. Don't save it for the last minute. Get in here today, and I'll be waiting for you on the inside. Peace out, homies. Talk to you real soon.